Today I'm going to be sharing 7 reasons why homeschooling might not be right for you. Because let's face it, homeschooling isn't for everyone. Let's just jump right in. The first reason that homeschooling might not be right for you is if you want your kids to be socialized, which means to pick up the behaviors and habits from their peers and to act in a way that is acceptable to modern culture. Now I realize that actually doesn't sound that great, does it? I don't know about you, but to me, that is not what I want for my kids. I do not want my kids picking up habits from their peers. That's not what they're supposed to learn from. Yes, they do get some from that, some learning from those around them, but ultimately, children should be learning from adults, not from other children that are self-centered, more likely to be greedy, more likely to not have qualities like patience and kindness and self-control and all those good things that ultimately have to be taught as children grow. So no, I do not want my children to be socialized. I had to interject here because I realized I didn't quite say how I meant to say about socializing, where kids, I believe, yes, kids are filled with sin because of sins in the world, and so we are all inherently sinful. But for me, in my experience with my kids, and like watching my first child and then my subsequent children, kids learn to hit. Kids learn to be mean. Yes, there's a natural like wanting things for yourself and putting yourself first, and I think like taking because you want, like that kind of stuff is inherent. But a lot of negative behaviors in kids that people just assume is just kids is learned, is picked up from other kids. So what I said just a moment before about about kindness being taught, it's not really what I meant to say. It's more the opposite, where kids learn the negative stuff. And if you don't have all those negative influences, you're gonna have such an easier time with your kids. Back to the video. Another big problem with the whole socialized thing is the learning to behave in a way that's acceptable to modern culture. Modern culture is primarily not acceptable to God right now. And if our kids are behaving in a way that's acceptable to modern culture, there's a good chance they're going to be doing a lot of things that are against God's ways. So that's another reason why I do not want my kids to be socialized. But if you do, then school is the right place for them. Reason number 2, homeschooling might not be right for you. You believe the classroom setting where kids are sitting down at a desk or table indoors the majority of the day is the right place for kids. However, if you believe, like I do, that kids benefit from spending hours outside, being able to run and jump and climb and explore and get dirty, then maybe homeschooling is right and the school setting is not the perfect choice for your kids. Kids do so well without having these rigid structures of having to sit still for hours and hours a day, having to be inside. Just the benefit of being out. Where was I? Just the benefit of being able to spend hours outside every day is so beneficial. And it's not just for kids either. There's so many studies that show for everybody, adults and children alike, being outdoors, having, getting adequate sunshine, vitamin D, being around plants and greenery where you're getting that oxygen that we need. All those things are so beneficial for our physical health as well as for our mental and emotional health. So that is a huge aspect of, for me, the benefits of our homeschooling. My kids have so much free time where they play outside. We do school outside sometimes. We go on nature walks, we bike ride, we just spend literally hours every day outside, and we would not have that time if they went to school. Reason number 3 that homeschooling might not be right for you is if you believe the school system should be raising your kids and not you. If you think the school system, which in other words known as the government, will do a good job raising your children for you, or that it's their responsibility to be raising your kids, the school's a good spot for you. However, if you realize that as the parent, you are ultimately responsible for your children, that it's your job to teach your kids good habits, high morals, strong values, and to teach them right from wrong, then it's worth thinking about how when they go to school, they're in that school setting for 40 hours a week and even more if they do extracurricular activities like sports or just other activities they can do at school. And no matter if you do all the right things on the weekends and on the evenings, even if you really instill in them all those good things and teach them godly ways and all the stuff that you should be doing, 40 hours is still a lot of time at school, where specifically if it's a public school and you're a Christian family, they're not going to be teaching the same values that you have. And I'm not saying that there's not good teachers and that there aren't Christian teachers in public schools or anything like that. Obviously there are. But most cases, a public school, almost all cases, I would say, a public school is not allowed to teach Christian values. It's not allowed to teach a Christian standpoint. And so my point is that even if you're doing all the right stuff, 40 hours a week in a non-Christian setting is going to impact your kids, likely not for the better. And, you know, obviously kids can go through the public school system and turn out great. Strong Christians come through the public school system. I'm not trying to say that you send your kids to public school and they'll turn out terrible or they won't stay Christians. I'm not trying to make those claims. But to me, I think it's a bit of a crapshoot. I think if you send your kids to the public school system, you're just playing with the odds of, yeah, they might turn out just great. They might be strong Christians and leaders. And obviously, the public school systems can use some strong Christians and leaders. So there is that kind of argument. But for me, it's not worth the chance that just of the things they will pick up, the things that they will be taught, and the negative influences, all those different things, that's not worth it when I'm the one responsible for my kids. I'm the one that wants to be the one on a day-to-day basis teaching them not just the school stuff that's important for them to learn, but the things that are more important than the school stuff. The right from wrong, the biblical values, the just how to walk in God's ways, how to be a kind and generous, patient, selfless, loving person, all the fruits of the Spirit that I want to see in my kids. I am ultimately the one responsible, me and my husband, of instilling those in our children, not the government. Reason number 4 that homeschooling might not be right for you is if you believe that teachers, who are strangers to you most of the time, are the ones that are best equipped to care and nurture and teach your children in a way that they will be the most successful. That sounds a little not very likely to be the case, does it? It's probably because it's not. I would say that almost in every scenario, a parent is going to love their children better than the teacher. And I think there's probably some people that get caught up in, I'm not a teacher, I don't know how to teach my kids. And it's not as hard and scary as it might seem at first. I'm not to say that it's not hard, especially if you haven't done it before. I'm sure it is hard. I have a unique experience being homeschooled myself, in that I don't feel like homeschooling is hard, and I don't have the worries of what if I'm not doing it right, what if I'm not doing enough, any of those things. That's, I think, almost completely because of my background having been homeschooled. So I can imagine how hard it would be not having that background. But the cool thing is, for one, there are so many options these days for co-ops and different groups you can join. There's people like me on YouTube and others that can share, what it looks like and just different tips and advice and curriculum and all the different stuff. Getting a little off topic. The point is that you, the parent, love your child best and know them best, and you will care for them best and teach them best, and you'll teach them the things that matter more than school. I know I already said that a little bit, so I don't want to keep going on that point, but it's just, you're the best teacher for your kids, not a stranger. I do want to kind of insert a little caveat here, where most of my arguments, most of my kind of reasons for the facetious reasons of why you might not want to homeschool are primarily looking at public schools. Obviously, there's a huge difference in public and private schools. For me, homeschooling is still by far the best choice, and I think for most families it is the best way to go. But these things I'm pointing out are specifically for public schools. A lot of them don't apply for Christian schools. A lot of them, there's schools like Waldorf schools and schools where they have kids being outside and being hands-on. And so I just wanted to throw out there that this is kind of specifically homeschool versus public school. I also do want to say that I know not everyone is able to homeschool. There's different circumstances, and I do personally believe that a lot of people that think they're not able to homeschool can, if they're willing to make it work for them. I think a lot of people that think they can't afford it, it's more a matter of priorities. I think there's a lot of things you can do to afford being a one-income family. You can buy used cars with cash. You can choose to not eat out and cook from scratch at home. You can do a lot of cheap and free resources for homeschooling itself, like using the library for books. And there's just so many things you can do that, I get a little annoyed when I hear people say they can't afford, this isn't even just homeschool, maybe it's they can't afford eating healthy, they can't afford homeschool, whatever it is. When I see they have new cars that they're making payments on, I see they have new phones that they might even be making payments on, and all these different things, and it's a matter of priorities. And I'm not trying to say everyone that says they can't afford it, like that everybody can, that says that. I'm just saying a lot of people, it comes down to priorities. And if you're willing to make it work, then I think most people can. Again, there's also circumstances like single parents, and so there certainly are circumstances where homeschooling is not an option, but I think most of the cases where people think it's not, or think it wouldn't work, or think they can't do it, I think that's not usually the case. Reason number 5, homeschooling might not be right for you, is if you agree with the ages, grades, and the paces that the school system sets, if you think those are the right way to go, which is a little ridiculous in my mind, the way school system does it, because I get why you have to have ages for a grade, because they're doing stuff, they need to be at a similar level maturity-wise and all that, which even that is a little, like, 2 8-year-olds are not necessarily the same maturity level and anything like that. But I get the reasons why a school system has to do what they do for grade levels and all that kind of stuff. But still don't think it's the right thing for most individual children. And that's one of the cool things about homeschooling is your child can be doing 4th grade math while they're doing 1st grade language arts, or vice versa, or whatever it is. You don't have to stick to the same level for each thing. They can get ahead in something. They can go slower on something. And I know there's some room for that in school systems where sometimes kids can skip a grade, sometimes do repeat grades, but it's obviously not as easy. And then you get kind of different problems with, they get behind, and there's just emotional problems with that, or losing their friend groups, and this just gets a little messier in the school system where it's so natural to go at a child's pace in the homeschool. Because essentially when they're in the school system, you're putting them in a box, and this is the curriculum they're using, the grade they're in, the pace they're going, and they kind of have to go with the rest of the children in their class, and it's just not nearly as much room for individual children's individual paces and how quickly they learn and all this just different stuff. So another reason why, if you agree all that stuff, then homeschool is not. But if you feel like I do, then you might realize that homeschooling is the way to go. Reason number 6 that homeschooling might not be right for you is if you feel it's important for kids to be exposed to real life issues like bullying, drug and alcohol abuse, pornography, and other things. Because honestly, those things happen in school systems at a kind of scary and sad rate. And I think there really are people that think that kids, they don't want their kids under a rock, and they got to be exposed to stuff to know how to deal with it and whatnot. I don't think that's common, but I think there are people out there like that. I think there's also a lot of people that either think it happens and we'll deal with it and take care of it when it gets there, or they just hope and cross their fingers that my kids won't be exposed to those things and we'll just skate by. For me, it's not worth it. It's not worth taking that chance. For me, it is very, very important to protect my kids' innocence. And I know that someday, everybody gets exposed to real life at some point, and when stuff happens, you deal with it as best you can. But I certainly am going to do my part to keep my young kids from being exposed to adult stuff for one, and then also just sinful stuff that's not even adult stuff, that's stuff that nobody should be exposed to. I'm going to do my best to keep them from being exposed to those things. I'm not going to take the risk that they're going to be in settings where at 6, 8, 10 years old, there's a good chance they'll be exposed to some of those things. That's just not worth it for me. So for me, keeping my kids at home, I, only ever have them with trusted people. I don't leave them with people I don't know. I don't really leave them in churches with people I don't know. It is very important to me to protect their innocence. And reason number 7 that homeschooling might not be the right path for you is if you enjoy going to parks and beaches and zoos on the weekends and in the summers when everybody else is there and it's just a big old happy party. Personally, I love that being a homeschool family, we can do all those things on weekdays, and we have most places virtually to ourselves. We go to the beach during the week when nobody's there. We pretty much don't do any of those things during the summer because I know that I can just do them during the weekday or the school year on weekdays and have it not be busy. So why would I go during the summer? Why would I go on the weekends? And I know that's a very frivolous reason. It's like not one of my reasons I homeschool, but it is definitely a perk. So those are my 7 reasons, my 7 facetious reasons why homeschooling might not be right for you. And I hope that for those of you that do homeschool, which I'd imagine probably is most of you, then these are just kind of reaffirming your reasons why you homeschool and how important it is and how it really is the best thing for your kids, even if you don't feel like you know what you're doing, even if you worry that you're missing something or you're not doing enough or your kids are behind. Amidst any of those worries, it's still the right path and it's still the best thing for your children. And for anybody here that doesn't homeschool, I really pray and hope that it makes you think about some of these things, because to me, it is such an important thing that for our kids to not be in the current public school setting. And I know there are some, I think there are probably some good schools, but in my mind, just as a whole, the public school system, the way it's run by our governments, is not a good thing. And I just really want Christian parents to pray on it and think on it and, see where God leads you, because homeschooling is such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And the family bond that you have, the sibling relationships you can nurture, all the time, all the hours that you have to instill godly values in your kids, to teach them right from wrong, just all these different things. The time you have that is taken away if you send them to school is just priceless, is truly invaluable. And I can't imagine doing it other way. I'd love to hear in the comments if you homeschool, what are your top reasons for that? And if you don't, if you're still here, if you have any questions, I would love to answer those as well. Like I said, I'm a 2nd generation homeschooler. I am now in my 6th year homeschooling, I think. I have a 4th grader, 2nd grader, kindergartner, toddler, and baby. And so I definitely feel like at this point, I really have kind of gotten into my own groove with homeschooling. I have a lot of confidence with what I'm doing, again, from my own background primarily, and I just love it so much. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you next time.